If you're anything like me, you're just trying to live your life, follow the rules, and be a good citizen. Well, what if I told you that these very rules could turn against you in the blink of an eye? In this video, we will reveal 8 ways how the government can end up taking your stuff and some jaw-dropping stories that'll make your head spin. Ever heard of the phrase, innocent until proven guilty? It's supposed to mean that if you're accused of something, you're given the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. Well, it turns out that's not always how it works, especially when the government gets involved. Picture this. You're cruising down the road, minding your own business, when suddenly flashing lights appear in your rearview mirror. You pull over, and the next thing you know, the police are asking if you've got a stash of cash in your car. Weird, right? Well, get ready for something weirder. In the United States, there's a law called civil asset forfeiture. Basically, it gives the police the power to seize your stuff if they think it's connected to a crime, even if you haven't been charged with anything. Yep, you heard me right. They can take your belongings without any proof that you did anything wrong. So how does this work? Well, instead of charging you, they charge your stuff. It's like your things are on trial, not you. And here's the kicker. Even if you go to court to prove your stuff is innocent, the burden of proof is still on you. Crazy, huh? Now, you might think this only happens in the movies, but oh no, it's real life. There have been cases where the government seized things like a solid gold rooster statue, a bunch of clacker balls, and get this, an entire dinosaur skeleton. Yeah, you heard me right, a dinosaur skeleton. But wait, it gets even crazier. Between 2001 and 2014, U.S. police seized a whopping $2.5 billion in cash. And get this, sometimes they took things that seemed totally random, like a cashier's check for 34 cents, an Xbox controller, and even 12 cans of peas. That's right, peas. But it gets even more messed up from here. Even if you prove your stuff is innocent, the police can still keep it. In over half of U.S. states, they can sell your stuff and pocket the cash. Yeah, you heard me right. They can make money off of your belongings. They must be spending that money for the good of the public, right? Well, no. Some police departments have used seized funds to buy things like margarita machines and vacations to Hawaii. Yeah, they're living it up on your dime. The sad part is that the people most affected by civil asset forfeiture are often minorities. In places like Philadelphia and Tanaha, Texas, Black and Latino residents are targeted more often, even when they've done nothing wrong. Take Ron Henderson, for example. He was just driving through Texas with his family when the police pulled him over, searched his car, and took all of his savings. They threatened to arrest him if he didn't hand over the money. And Ron's not alone. In just 2 years, police in Tanaha seized over $3 million from mostly Black and Latino residents. And because fighting these seizures in court is so expensive, most people just have to walk away and leave their stuff behind. So yeah, next time you see those flashing lights in your rearview mirror, just remember, your stuff might not be as safe as you think it is. This is just the first of many crazy laws. Number 7. The lavish lifestyle funded by unknown citizens. Let's talk taxes. We all know they're a part of life, right? We pay them, and in return, we get things like roads, schools, and hospitals. But what if I told you that in some places, your tax money might not be going where you think it is? Welcome to the Chechen Republic, a region in Russia where things work a little differently. You see, instead of paying taxes to the government like usual, people here pay into a mysterious fund controlled by the head honcho, Ramzan Kadyrov. Now, you'd think this fund would be used for public services, right? Well, think again. Ramzan has been caught using it for some pretty questionable stuff, like buying motorcycles for his biker gang buddies and throwing himself lavish parties. But here's the fascinating part. Most of the people in Chechnya don't even know they're paying into this fund. Officials pretend it's all voluntary donations, even though it rakes in hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Talk about sneaky. And it gets worse. Ramzan's been spending his money on things like hiring celebrities for his birthday parties and even paying millions for boxing matches, all while claiming it's for charitable assistance. Yeah, right. Bottom line, Ramzan Kadyrov is using his people's hard-earned money to fund his own extravagant lifestyle. It's like Robin Hood, but in reverse. Number 6. Home invasion by the government. Picture this. You come home from work, ready to relax, when suddenly the government shows up and tells you they're taking your house. This might seem like a plot of a movie, but this actually happened in New London, Connecticut back in 2005. They were using something called eminent domain, which basically means they can take your property if they think it's for the greater good. In this case, they wanted to bulldoze an entire neighborhood so a big pharmaceutical company could build there instead. But get this, the Supreme Court said it was okay. They ruled that destroying people's homes to make way for a big corporation was totally fine. Can you believe it? Sure, the people got some money for their houses, but that doesn't make it right. The government literally stole their homes and gave them peanuts in return. And to make matters worse, the land ended up sitting empty anyway. Luckily, this case caused a lot of outrage and led to changes in the law. But eminent domain is still a problem in many places, with governments putting big business interests ahead of the rights of ordinary people. Number 5. Myanmar's Jade Heist. Let's talk about jade. You know, that green gemstone that some people believe brings good luck? Well, in Myanmar, it's a big deal. The country makes a whopping $31 billion every year from mining and selling jade, which is almost half of all the money they make. But here's the thing. Instead of using that money to help its people, the government is smuggling most of the jade out of the country and selling it to China. By doing this, they avoid paying taxes in Myanmar, which means the money that should go back into the country's economy ends up in the pockets of greedy officials. Meanwhile, the actual jade miners are risking their lives every day in dangerous conditions, only for their hard-earned profits to be stolen by those in power. It's unfair and unjust, to say the least. So while some people believe jade brings good luck, for the miners and the people of Myanmar, it's been nothing but bad luck. Talk about a raw deal. Number 4. Taxing sunlight. Let's rewind back to the 17th century when King William III of England had a rather unusual idea to fill his empty coffers: a tax on windows. Yep, you heard me right. Here's how it worked. If you had less than 10 windows in your house, you had to pay a tax, and if you had more than 10, you had to pay even more. Sounds crazy, right? But it didn't stop there. People started bricking up their windows to avoid paying the tax, which made their homes dark and gloomy. Not exactly a great way to live. And it wasn't just homeowners who felt the pinch. Rent prices went up for tenants living in buildings with lots of windows, even if their own rooms didn't have any. The tax lasted for over 150 years, until doctors got worried about people getting sick from living in dark, stuffy homes. So in 1851, they finally got rid of it. But by then, the damage had already been done. In fact, many believe this is where the term daylight robbery came from. So next time you hear that saying, remember, it's not just an expression, it's a historical fact. Number 3. Taxes on beard. A hairy situation in Russian history. Let's talk about Peter the Great, the leader of Russia way back in the 17th century. Now, Peter was a pretty big deal. He wanted to make Russia more like Europe, and he had some pretty unusual ideas about how to do it. One of Peter's big things was beards. Yep, you heard me right. He didn't like them. In fact, he thought they were old-fashioned. So he came up with a crazy plan to get rid of them. At one of his parties, he actually had a jester go around and shave the beards off anyone who had one. And get this, if you didn't want to shave, the jester was allowed to punch you in the head. Ouch! But Peter didn't stop there. In 1705, he started charging people a tax just for having a beard. Yep, you had to pay money to keep your beard. And if you didn't pay up, the police would come and shave you themselves. It's like growing a beard was luxury at the time. If you did pay, you got a little token to show off to your friends. Yeah, like a badge of honor for having a beard. For some people, beards were more than just a fashion statement. They were a religious symbol, so they refused to shave, even if it meant getting punched or having to pay a hefty tax. This wasn't just about beards. Peter also had rules about clothing. He wanted everyone to dress like they did in Europe, so he banned traditional Russian robes and made people wear jackets instead. So, next time you complain about having to shave or wear a certain outfit, just be glad you're not living in Peter the Great's Russia. Number 2. Roosevelt's gold grab. Back in the 1930s, then U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt did something pretty shocking. He made it illegal for people to own large amounts of gold. Yep, if you had too much gold, you had to hand it over to the government. And if you didn't, you could face serious fines or even jail time. So why did Roosevelt do this? Well, the U.S. economy was in bad shape after a big stock market crash. The government needed more gold to help fix things, so they decided to take it from the people. Now, at first, they paid people for their gold, but then they turned around and raised the price of gold for themselves. This made the government richer, but it also made the dollar worth less. And get this, the law was only supposed to last until the crisis was over, but it ended up lasting for over 40 years. So was it fair for the government to take people's gold like that? Some people say yes, because it helped the economy. But others say no because it took away people's freedom to own property. What do you think? And number 1, royal timber theft. Let's take a trip back to 17th century Britain and talk about something a little different: trees. Yep, trees were a big deal back then, especially when it came to building ships for the Navy. You see, the British Navy needed a lot of timber to make ships, and they were running out of trees in Britain. So they looked to their colonies in North America for help. In North America, there was a type of tree called the eastern white pine, and it was perfect for making ship masts. The Brits saw these trees and wanted them for themselves, so they marked the trees with a special symbol to show that they belonged to the king. But here's the thing: the trees weren't actually owned by the king. They were owned by private citizens. But the Brits didn't care. They paid the owners a tiny amount of money for the trees and took them anyway. And if anyone tried to sell the trees to other countries for more money, they got hit with a huge fine. So basically, the Americans were forced to give up their trees for almost next to nothing. Also, the British could build their ships. Luckily, things are different now. You don't have to worry about kings stealing your trees. Nowadays, you can enjoy the trees in your backyard without any royal interference. If you want to learn more about some crazy rules the government implemented on its people, click the video on screen now to learn more about how Nayib Bukele used his power to solve gang violence in El Salvador.